Welcome to the Disc Golf Prescription Podcast, your weekly dose of disc golf. Hello and welcome to the Disc Golf Prescription Podcast. I'm your host, John Nicholson, and today I have a special guest with me. He is not only very good looking, but he is a British man who is an expert in the fitness space. His name is Alex Shaw. Alex, how are you doing today, buddy?
Dude, I'm good. That is incredibly awkward because we've known each other for a very long time and it felt very formal, but I appreciate being here. I'm excited. We're going to dive into some really cool stuff and really looking forward to it.
Yeah, awesome. Before we get started with the interview though, guys, please make sure to like, subscribe. If you have something you want to comment about, feel free to comment. I'm not sure if there's any more things. I always get stuck on 3, but make sure to do all the things. It really helps out the podcast, and I very much appreciate it. So with all that being said, Alex, who are you and what do you do?
That is a great question. So I am a personal trainer and online weight loss coach. John and I go way back to college days when we were both working in a lab together. But so I help people generally lose weight, get strong. I've worked all the way from youth athletics all the way to D1 college, middle-aged guys, and then I've worked with people as old as 90 years old in the weight room. So it really does span pretty long way, and fitness has been a lifelong kind of passion of mine ever since I was a fat kid, got in the gym as a teenager, and the rest has been history.
Awesome. Ever since, I haven't told you this, but okay. I haven't told you guys this either. Ever since I started the podcast, I've wanted to have Alex on the podcast. Alex is, like he said, we go back to college. He's unbelievably knowledgeable when it comes to fitness. His only disc golf specific knowledge is the stuff that we talk about, because I've asked him for a lot of advice on getting stronger in certain areas, especially for rotation, on different issues with my diet, and especially even on rehabbing injury stuff. So I've asked his advice many, many times, but I'm even more excited to have him on because we just generally banter back and forth with each other quite a lot, actually.
John and I never have a bad time together, and we spend a lot of time together, so you would think we'd be sick of each other, but it hasn't happened yet. Hopefully it doesn't happen on this podcast, but I think this is probably a good time to transition into, one of our fondest early memories, which was at grad school. So my background for all of you guys watching and listening is I did my undergrad in England. That's where I'm from. I did that in exercise science. I came over here and did a master's degree in exercise physiology. And during that master's, we actually published my thesis. So I get to say I'm a published scientist as well. And we were looking at the effect of hangover on exercise performance. If you want the Cliff Notes, it doesn't help. It doesn't hurt as much as you think, but it definitely doesn't help for you guys out there competing. But we were running some urine analysis. Science isn't all glamour, red carpet, and caviar. It's actually hard work sometimes. And basically, I needed someone to run urine analysis for me, and John was that guy. He showed up every day. He held pee in cup and, sometimes transferred pee from a cup to a measuring device. And he was my pee butler.
It was a rather awkward role reversal. I can say the word. Normally in movies and such, the butlers typically are British or have some sort of English accent. And I became his butler.
Yeah, the other role that British guys play a lot in movies is the bad guy, and I like to think of myself in that. I was yelling at people while they were cycling and hungover. I embraced the role of the bad guy pretty well, but I did need a wonderful assistant, and John fulfilled that role fantastically.
Sound like I was Vanna White. Let me go flip some letters around. Yes. So we had some adventures in the lab. The kinesiology lab at school, that is for sure. So with that being kind of our backstory, transitioning out of college, what did you start doing after that?
Great question. So, like I said, my fitness journey started as a kid, right? That was how I was working on my own in fitness, reading everything. Like started with Men's Health, realized Men's Health is actually not a reliable source of scientific data. It's actually just a glossy magazine. So then we started going to blogs, strength and conditioning journals, eventually all of that. And my first experience into America was actually a study abroad year. And during that study abroad year, I was an intern with the softball team at UNT, the soccer
University
team.
of North Texas, by the way.
Yes. Go Mean Green. They're not very good. But the football team as well. So spent a lot of time around athletes. At the time, I thought that I wanted to work with athletes full time. And then I realized that actually not all of the athletes I worked with, some of the athletes I worked with, I didn't enjoy being around them much. I'm speaking mostly about football culture. Turns out the reserved British kind of personality doesn't mesh super well with rah-rah football all of the time. So I realized, okay, I don't want that. And then also I learned that strength conditioning coaches, the hours are terrible and the pay is worse. So at that moment in time, I decided, okay, I'm going to actually transition over to personal fitness. And again, through an internship, I got a position at a very high-end commercial gym. I was there for a couple of years before going independent. During that time, so I don't know if you guys can see, but we're actually in my garage right now. It's my man cave, but at one time it was my personal training studio. We probably had $20,000 worth of equipment in here and about 400 square feet, and it was a really good time.
I lived here at the time, and it was fantastic.
It was a good time lifting in here, and then I transitioned out of that, and that's when my kind of online fitness started kind of taking off. So initially, it was working with kind of the demographic that I was working with in person, which was again anywhere from young athlete all the way up to 90-year-olds. But then I kind of niched down a little bit, and you guys can probably see behind the sofa, behind the bar, which is John lit very nicely with some blue lighting. There is a lot of whiskey up there. I promise I'm not drinking that all of the time. But what I realized was I had a passion for fitness. I really enjoyed whiskey. So I kind of combined them. So my online business is called Whiskey Weight Loss. And, I basically help whiskey drinkers, people who, enjoy a beverage every now and then, don't want to give that up to lose weight, and I help them do that. And I am still doing my in-person stuff kind of on the side, working with a wide range of people, including some athletes.
Oh, that's awesome. One of the reasons I wanted to have Alex on here is because I've had Seth Muncie on here, and Seth Muncie is a strength and conditioning professional specifically in the disc golf space. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to get your thoughts on some things that Seth doesn't talk about, but just your general thoughts on how you feel about strength and conditioning in disc golf and why fitness is essential to becoming a better disc golfer.
Yeah, 100%. So, my expertise, my knowledge is really in kind of the body composition area. And I don't mean like getting so ripped you can appear on the front of Men's Health. That's not really what we're talking about here. But more the sustainable weight loss to drop 10, 20 pounds if you are carrying a little bit of extra body fat. So as we talk about this, we're going to get very clinical, right? Body fat can be a somewhat triggering term. I mean this purely objectively when we talk about it. But what I want you to imagine is kind of this hypothetical, right? You're on the course, you have your discs, you are playing, then strap a 20-pound weight vest on and imagine how different you play with that, and how much harder that might be to generate rotation, generate power. And that's basically what you're doing when you're playing disc golf competitively with a higher body fat percentage than someone who has a lower body fat percentage. When you have to move your body and your body literally objectively weighs more, it is harder to generate torque and power. So from a weight loss, from a body fat loss, body composition change point of view, there is a whole lot of value for athletes, right? It gets talked about a lot in football, in soccer, right? Everyone, there was a picture of like DK Metcalf way back in the NFL Combine. The dude looked like a monster with 3% body fat, right? That's a beneficial thing for football, but that translates to almost all sports. Anything where you have to generate power or torque quickly, it's beneficial to have a better body fat percentage. And then on the strength side of things, obviously, if your muscles can contract stronger and faster, then you are going to be able to put more speed into your discs. And I'm sure you guys make a lot of analogies between disc golf and golf. And I think you're starting to see that in the pro game, where it used to be, a bunch of like middle-aged guys who are kind of like wiry framed. And now you're starting to see this evolution of golf where all of a sudden these golf players have like giant butt muscles, because that's where a lot of the torque comes from. And like they have lats and shoulders. And
I have to interrupt you real quick. I love how you said we're going to get really clinical and then immediately went into giant butt muscles.
I mean,
we didn't go glutes. We just went straight to butt muscles.
We can talk more about glutes if you want to really focus in on some glutes. We can talk some glute musculature for sure. But yeah, it's I think you guys are going to see this evolution in disc golf where everyone kind of embraces this over time as the sport grows, and you'll see bigger, stronger, faster just raises the floor of where your game is and really just blows the ceiling off the house entirely.
Yep. So I would say we're at the very beginning of that in disc golf. It has not fully started to make that transition in the pro ranks yet. There's a few. The two I think of off the top of my head, Ezra is jacked. Gavin Babcock as well. Probably the two most obviously in shape people on tour. There are a lot of other people as well. Nico is one of them who's very in shape. But it's starting to really take hold, and a lot of people are starting to take it a lot more seriously, beyond just being the ripped aesthetic, but also just having really good stability, being able to move your body properly, and all of the different can't find words right now.
Planes.
Thank you.
Planes.
Thank you. I was like, the things.
And for anyone listening, by planes, we are talking about planes of movement, not the thing you get on at DFW. Planes meaning like forwards and backwards, side to side, and rotational. Those are planes that we're talking about.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I absolutely. I think you'll start to see that over time. And I want to make a differentiation, right? So when we talk about body composition, I think as a population, we've been conditioned to think like the cover of Men's Health, right? So shredded six pack, giant biceps, chest muscles for days. And that's great, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But when it comes to something like golf or disc golf, the training that you do to get those muscles is not necessarily the training that you need for peak athletic performance, right? If you go into a bodybuilding gym, they're doing things slightly differently than a strength and conditioning gym. And I think for the average person who's just kind of getting into this, maybe that's a really important distinction. So, bodybuilders, they're not doing a lot of rotation-based movement because they don't need to rotate well. They need to be shredded and flex their abs and have like 12 different abdominal muscles. Having a six-pack is great for disc golf, but it's not the be-all and end-all. Having a strong core and strong back musculature to be able to transfer force from your hips to your disc, way more important than seeing like the bottom two abs, like the hardest ones. I think everyone who's been in a gym a long time has like a very, very frustrating relationship with the bottom two abs.
Yeah, they're picky.
They're down there somewhere.
They exist.
They exist. They've been seen once. It's a stuff of legend. You've got like Bigfoot and the two bottom abs.
That's perfect. So with that introduction to kind of what you do and the body composition part of what you do, what types of exercises do you think sort of make more sense for disc golfers as opposed to what people generally think of fitness as the bodybuilding type crowd?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I want to do is kind of do a compare and contrast right here, because this is a very big topic, and we're gonna cover the very fundamentals as we talk about this. But if you think about what a bodybuilding lower body and ab routine might look like, right? So a bodybuilder is going to do a lot of machine work, so leg extensions, leg presses, hamstring curls, calf raises, stuff like that. Right? All of that stuff's great for developing strength in the muscle itself, but it doesn't necessarily translate to movement all that well. So when we think about leg work specifically, right, generating lower body power, we're looking more at stuff like single leg Romanian deadlifts. If you don't know what that is, feel free to YouTube it. There's plenty of good resources out there. Split squats, step ups, anything where you're having to use your core musculature, your abs to kind of control your upper body while doing single leg stuff. I think that stuff's going to be really, really beneficial. And then in terms of core work, right, we think of bodybuilding work as crunches and sit-ups. These are very traditional ab exercises, which do work the muscles. But again, John said I'm not a big disc golf person, but as far as I know, you don't do like a crunch motion as you throw a disc. And if you do, I think you probably get laughed at on the course, right?
I would assume you do not throw well if you were doing crunches
I think it would be a struggle. So if we're looking to develop core strength here, doing things called anti-movements, which is instead of doing like a crunch and a twist, what you're doing is resisting a twist. So for you watching on YouTube?
Yep.
Okay,
YouTube.
cool. So you can do something called a Pallof press or a Pallof rotation, where you grab a cable stack and it's to the side of you and you bring it out in front. And what you're basically doing is your upper body is resisting rotation as opposed to generating it. Because when you think about a disc golf throw, your core isn't generating power. What it's doing is it's transferring power from your lower body to your upper body through your arm and then into the disc. So really all that power comes from the hips. It goes through the core and then through your arm. So we're not looking to generate power with our core, we're looking to transfer power. And that's a really kind of key distinction. And to be able to do that effectively requires a different approach to exercise.
Yep. No, that's beautiful. And what the thing that I was most caught with by that is I find that all good strength coaches generally agree on things. One of the one of the things Seth is really big on is core stabilization. I can't talk today. Anti-rotation movements, all of those things. So it's funny when you get people who've never talked together, ask them for their advice, and their advice kind of lines up too.
It's wonderful. Seth sounds like he knows what he's talking about, which is great. I do want to add on to this though. So when we think of the core muscles, we often think of like, your six-pack muscle, which is called your rectus abdominis. You've got your transverse abdominis, which lies deep, kind of like inside. And then you've got your obliques. But one of the really underrated elements of your core is actually your lat muscles. Which are the muscles on the side of your back, but it's not just how wide your back is. They actually go from your hip, your pelvis, all the way up to your upper arm, and they attach onto your spine. So they're kind of like this big structural muscle, and the lats are often the forgotten element of the core. And they are, kind of like the chassis of your upper body. If you're into cars, they transfer a lot of power. So core ab work is obviously great, but if you've got really strong lats, especially if you want to develop your backhand in disc golf, if you want to put some torque into that, there is a lot of tension that will go into your lats to be able to stabilize and get all that power from your hips into the disc.
No, that's a very excellent, very not talked about point very often. So yes, right. lat work can be very, very helpful. Any specific exercises you would recommend for that type of lat work?
Absolutely. So the lats are a muscle that's a little more complex than I think is often given credit for, because the muscle fibers are actually at different orientations. So doing a row where you're pulling in a horizontal plane from in front of you back is great. I would highly recommend doing, not just a seated row with dumbbells or cables or a machine. That's great, don't get me wrong. But doing something where you are standing in front of a cable stack, either with your feet square or with your feet split, and doing single arm rows. Reason why this might be beneficial for a disc golf player is it actually forces you to stop that rotation. As you pull with one hand, your torso wants to rotate the other direction. So you have to brace your abs. You have to use your hips, use your glute muscles to stabilize the body while you're doing these rows. If you can row like most of the cable stack, standing as opposed to just sitting on a machine, you're going to be in a really good spot. And then same thing with pull downs. Lat pull downs are great. I'm actually not a big fan of like the straight bar pull downs. I think it lends itself to a kind of motion which, without really good coaching, just isn't super beneficial. So if you can, either two independent handles or a neutral grip lat pull down bar is fantastic. And the biggest mistake I think people make with a lat pull down is they actually bring it down too far. You'll see a lot of people, again, YouTube, you get the benefit of video here, but when you pull down, a lot of people will pull down kind of almost to this like sternum level. And when that happens, the shoulder is actually rotated and it's taken tension away from the lats into the inside of the shoulder. So as you do a lat pull down, we're really pulling to maybe chin level, maybe collarbone, depending on your individual anatomy. So I think that's a big thing, and keeping those elbows kind of tucked under as opposed to kind of flaring them back. Again, I think is a really key technique point. But if you're interested in learning about this, there are tons of people who know this stuff on YouTube. Maybe John can link to some in the description. I don't know.
Absolutely. I'd love to.
Yeah, but we can sort you guys out and show a couple of exercises that might be really beneficial for building lat strength.
No, this is really good advice. Thank you for that. That's so being able to strengthen your core, being able to resist rotation in order to transfer power better from the hips, and being able to use our lats more effectively as well in the throw. All of those will help you.
Absolutely. Those are 4 big points if you want to increase your throwing power. I think that's a fantastic foundation.
Awesome. So let's segue slightly. Let's stick on exercise. So let's get more back on the body composition subject. If people are looking to drop some weight and improve their disc golf game by making it easier for their body to do these things, what are some exercises or lifestyle choices you would recommend to those people?
That is great. So here I think is maybe a misconception that a lot of people have. They think, okay, I need to lose weight. I'm going to get on the treadmill for like an hour. I'm going to do it like 3 times a week and I will lose weight, right? It's not an uncommon thought process, that there's an amount of logic to it. But unfortunately, that it doesn't quite work that way. You see, when you get into the science of it, and nutrition is a very nuanced topic, okay? So we're going to keep it very kind of simple here, but body fat loss is simply a measure of energy balance. And by that, we mean calories in versus calories out. So there's 2 parts of the equation. If you are eating less calories than you burn, the difference is what your body is going to pull from its fat stores. You can kind of think of your body fat as an energy bank, one that we want to run to zero like pretty quickly if we're looking to lose weight. It's the opposite of actual money. You don't want it. So if you are expending more energy than you are bringing in, your body has to find that difference from somewhere. So it's going to pull it from your body fat. So you think, okay, great. Well, if I jump on the treadmill for an hour, 3 times a week, I can burn, 1,000 calories. Great. Sounds good. Except that's exhausting. I don't know about you, but I haven't run like an hour on a treadmill in a really long time.
I can tell you guys firsthand that Alex is very against running.
I'm not a fan of it. I'm not good at it. I understand some people get a runner's high. I don't think I've ever had one. Not a single time. I much prefer weightlifting, but really what we're driving at here is, yes, you can increase the calories burned through cardio. That's a way to do it. But given how much energy and time it can take to kind of get enough of a calorie burn, what I would recommend instead is focusing on how many steps you're getting a day. Because going from a relatively sedentary lifestyle to something, a little bit higher, is going to have that same calorie burning effect over the course of a day, but it's not going to exhaust you to the point where it's affecting, the rest of your life, right? If you're tired from your cardio workout, it might be really tough to get your disc golf practice in because you're feeling like crap. Now, the good part for you guys is you're walking a course when you play. So you're already getting those steps. So you've already got a good foundation there. So now it's about implementing that into the rest of your life. And one of the best things I recommend people do is either downloading an app on your phone or getting a Fitbit or an Apple Watch and just tracking it. Because if you have, a 12,000 step day when you're playing disc golf and then a 2,000 step day when you're not, that's a problem. We want to try and, have a minimum of some around, 4,000 to 5,000 steps as a bare baseline. And then if we can get to 7,000 or 8,000, then we're starting to do enough movement to maybe create body composition changes. If you're consistently hitting 10,000 steps a day and, eating in a good kind of capacity, then you will make positive body composition changes. But really, the main driver of weight loss is going to be nutrition. There's a saying that goes around like abs are made in the kitchen, or like the 80-20 rule of like 80% of your weight loss happens in the kitchen or outside of the gym, and only 20% happens inside the gym. And I completely subscribe to that theory. So it's much easier to not eat 500 calories than it is to burn
An extra
500 calories.
Yeah.
Like it's not even close. And here's a few examples of things that I do with my clients when it comes to weight loss. So really simple things. Olive oil gets a reputation as a really healthy oil, and it is from a fat profile point of view. But 1 tablespoon has 130 calories in it. So if you are looking to lose weight, changing whatever oil or butter you're using to cook food in just for spray, just for the sake of not sticking to the pan, that's huge. You can save 200 to 300 calories a meal just by doing that, and there's zero effort in that. Same thing when it comes to snacks. So I took on a client recently. He's like, yeah, I made some healthy changes. I started eating a handful of nuts every time I get hungry. I'm like, that's great. Nuts are really healthy. Let's Google how many calories are in a cup of mixed nuts. It's over 800.
It's a lot.
For reference, the average full-grown man trying to lose weight is probably on around 2,000 calories if he's losing weight. So you're taking up 40% of your day's calories in 1 cup. 1 cup is not a lot of food.
No, it is not.
It's not a lot of food. So changing that for something else, like swapping nuts for popcorn, very, very easy swap, right? Very calorie-dense food for a very non-calorie dense food, as long as it's not coated in caramel, which tastes delicious, but it does take away from the nutrition aspect a little bit. And the other thing, 2 things that you can do to make yourself feel more full while you are trying to create this calorie deficit or lower your calories is prioritize protein and prioritize fiber. Those are 2 things that keep you more full, right? So not all kind of foods are created equal when it comes to weight loss. So if we take 300 calories, it was Halloween not too long ago when we were recording this, 300 calories of Halloween chocolate is going to not fill you up very much for those 300 calories at all. Whereas something like a chocolate peanut butter protein bar and a banana, which is something I use a lot. Frequently. John knows. Okay, same calories or less. You get way more value out of that. Mm-hmm. So much more. And you're more full, you're more satiated. It's easier, right? I think the word diet has this connotation of I'm hungry all the time and I can't wait for this diet to end. And when John asked me about sustainability, that's exactly it. It shouldn't feel like a diet. Right. If you are trying to lose weight, there will be times where you realize that I'm a little more hungry than usual, but it shouldn't feel like you are starving. If you are starving while trying to lose weight, then you're doing it wrong and you should probably get someone to guide you through that. Whether that, and find a coach that resonates with you. So I work with whiskey drinkers as an example. Those are my people. There is a coach for females between 18 and 25. That coach exists somewhere.
100%.
There's a coach for, the 50 plus male athlete. There are so many coaches out there, and someone will be able to help you through this process for sure. And also there's a ton of free information on the internet, which is fantastic.
I will also state, just because we did not state this beforehand, we are giving very general advice here. This is by no means any all-encompassing diet advice on a full nutritious diet. There are many people who will recommend very, very restricted diets. I would recommend finding somebody who recommends whole foods as a base and kind of go from there. And then obviously some of Alex's tips on using spray olive oil, because it has the same fat makeup, but you end up using a lot less of it. That's a very easy way to get rid of calories. So
100%. And there is, a very strong evidence base to show that if you can eat mostly whole foods, if you eat less processed foods, that is going to be beneficial. And then understanding how the process works on a deeper level will only help you in terms of being able to kind of implement consistently. But there are a few very kind of core foundational principles when it comes to losing weight. You don't lose body fat without a calorie deficit, which is burning more calories than you eat. As long as you satisfy that requirement and you're getting, the nutrition you need from a varied source of foods, there's some stuff that just makes sense, right? Like green vegetables are good for you. We know this. Pretty much all fruits are good for you. So there's some poisonous ones out there. Don't have those, but like fruit's pretty great. Being able to get a variety of protein sources, again, there's a whole lot of nuance here, whether you're going into ethics on, vegan, vegetarian. There are ways to do nutrition in a way that suits you and your lifestyle. And that is probably the key takeaway I want people to have, is that it has to fit you. Instead of kind of molding your lifestyle around a diet, something like keto, Whole30, paleo, like very, very, very pigeonhole-y kind of diets. You need something that works around you. Right now, that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to find a diet that says, okay, we can have Twinkies for breakfast and then chocolate chip cookies for lunch.
Why not?
I know. I'm sad too. But you got to, as long as you satisfy those foundational principles, you can find something that works.
Yep.
And I that's the biggest takeaway I can give you. It's got to work around you and your preferences.
I do want to say you were listing things off, and I pointed to this water bottle as he said high protein, and I didn't mean high protein. I just meant lots of water is good for you. I just wanted to clarify.
Just clarify that. Like John's not an idiot. He knows that water is actually
high protein.
They make that. Did you know?
Oh goodness, protein water.
Yes, and it isn't terrible.
Okay.
It's like isolate protein, and it's mixed into it, and they add some like peach flavor to it. It's really for people who don't like protein shakes.
Gotcha.
It's quite expensive. It's more expensive than the Walmart special bottled water that John has right there.
Interesting. They're much better than that one. I did want to touch on one topic, which was satiating foods. I know Alex got into that briefly. I just wanted to give this advice because I don't hear this advice talked about as much as it should be. He talked about how a higher protein snack is going to be much more satiating or keep you full a lot more longer than something that is like made of simple carbohydrates. Fat and protein are the two most satiating macronutrients you can have. And the only problem we said with fat earlier, like a cup full of nuts was 800 calories.
It's a lot.
And so fat has a very high caloric density. While you do need fat, taking up 50% of your caloric intake in one go is not always good. So a lot of times personal trainers will shift that into protein because it's kind of just as satiating and has half the calories. So generally, if you can have high protein snacks, it keeps you a lot fuller for a lot longer, which is a very good tip for people to use especially if that's all you remember. You're just high protein. That helps.
High protein and vegetables, like vegetables, fruit, if you can make that as a base of your diet, you're going to be in a really great place. And then there is room for other stuff, right? We're not saying never have olive oil and never have nuts. That's not what we're saying, because that would feed into that restrictive narrative that we don't like. But understanding portion size, understanding, okay, I can have this much nuts or I can have this much something else. Greek yogurt, steak, chicken, whatever.
Providing yourself options, yeah.
Exactly. Once you have that flexibility, you're in a really good spot.
And the more options you have, the less restrictive it feels.
100%.
Which is always good. Awesome. Is there anything else kind of along the disc golf strength and conditioning or body composition that you wanted to get into?
There's one more thing I want to do, and I think it's important to note that you can educate yourself just by looking at the label on food. And I work with people who have very busy travel schedules. I work with parents who obviously have less time than us non-parent folks. But, it's very easy to go, well, I have to go through the drive-thru today. I literally don't have another option because this came up unexpectedly. There is always an option that is better than other stuff. Just because you have to roll through the drive-thru doesn't mean you have to get, the waffle fries and the double-sized burger.
Why'd you look at me when you said that?
No reason. You don't need the large cheese fries, John. I mean, sometimes he needs the large cheese fries.
I do.
So it's okay. We've shared some cheese fries before. But there's always options. I'll run through a fast food menu with a lot of my clients, and it's like, hey, like you can do like a burger, a side, in which case, fries is the one that people normally go to. Use this dipping sauce, and if you grab a normal soda, that meal can be like 1,200 calories, which is a lot for a drive-through meal. And then we walk them through something else where it's, okay, a slightly different burger. They get like grilled chicken nuggets instead of fries. They get barbecue sauce instead of the sauce that comes from the fast food place that isn't open on Sundays. And then they get like water, or did you like how I say water there instead of water? Instead of water.
We're Americanizing him, people.
It's challenging. It really is. I'm losing my identity over here. And then you have like an unsweet tea, a diet soda, a bottle of water, and you can do that same meal for like 500 calories, and you get more, or you get the same amount of food. But you can do it for half calories. Like when you start looking at labels, like pretty much every restaurant now has nutrition, at least the chain restaurants. They have nutrition on their website.
Required to.
Yeah. If you want to educate yourself on this process, go look at a restaurant menu and go, holy cow, that salad at Cheesecake Factory, it's actually got 1,500 calories in. That's crazy. Whereas, this salad somewhere else has only got 400 calories in. But most people lump salads into one basket and just say every salad's the same. Every salad is not the same. Just like every burger is also not the same.
Big facts.
Yeah. You don't know what you don't know. And I love that saying. And the only way you can know is to learn. So I don't know. Go read a label.
We're gonna walk down that path. There's things you know, the things you don't know, and the things
you don't know that you don't know.
I don't know. I've confused myself. All right. Awesome. So before we kind of talk about what you've got going on, and before we get out of here, we have to get into, you guys know what this is. Steph's Curious Questions.
Ooh.
Are you ready for this?
I don't think so.
Oh, for those of you,
anyway.
I actually explained to Alex beforehand, so I cheated this time. But for those of you who don't know what Steph's Curious Questions is, Steph is my wife. Every time we do a show and have a guest on to interview, she has the task of coming up with 3 questions for this person. She might stalk their social media. She might already have 3 questions that are ready.
She might be sitting in my living room right now.
She is doing that. But I have no control over what questions she asks. So I just kind of shoot from the hip on these, apart from telling him what Steph's Curious Questions is. So we had a slight heads up. So question number 1. What is the craziest thing you found out about America when you came here for the first time?
So I came from a very rural part of England. So I grew up in a village. My graduating elementary class had 12 kids in it. My parents' house was opposite a turkey farm. So it was pretty rural, like a lot of 1-lane roads, or like, one lane going the other way. And if you got stuck behind a tractor, you got stuck behind a tractor. Like that was it. So honestly, one of the weirdest things, like when I got off the plane and I was in a super shuttle on my way to the University of North Texas for the first time, I was like, this road has like so many lanes. So like, honestly, the road size, like you guys, if you haven't been into Europe, it will blow your mind how small everything is compared to over here. And I pray for you if you ever go to either Paris or Italy, where all the streets are,
super tiny.
They're so small.
I complain when I go to the Northeast. I'm like, I have a 3/4 ton truck driving around old Massachusetts, and I'm like, this is awful.
Yes. So road size, to answer your question, John, it's just built different. It was quite shocking.
Okay, I like it. All right, we're gonna have to explain this one. If you had a pirate name, what would it be?
So I know where this story is heading, but I don't know. Can we take? Well, I am a whiskey drinker, so let's and pirates have eye patches. So let's go with the one-eyed whiskey thief. I know pirates drink rum, but I'm stealing all their whiskey if they have any.
Perfect. I like it. So we're gonna explain this one because we know exactly where this question came from. So. Would you like to, or would you like me to?
You do it, because you were there when the moment happened.
I will go for it. So I cannot remember what store Steph and I were in. We were traveling when it happened, so we weren't even near Alex. But you can't see it over here, but it's actually over here in the garage. He has a half whiskey barrel that has been fashioned into a shelf, essentially.
Yeah, so it's a storage unit, like a sideboard, like a decorative piece.
Yep. And so we both understand what that was. Like, it's obvious it fits the whiskey theme we've got going on in here. So Steph and I were just out shopping, and we see this exact half whiskey barrel shelf. And Steph goes, "It's a whiskey barrel." And I was confused because she did not give me any explanation, and I didn't even know the whiskey barrel was there at the time. And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Alex has that." And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "That makes so much sense now with all of his whiskey. Like, it's a whiskey barrel." And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "I thought he was going for like a pirate theme."
Yeah, which I'm not. There's no pirates.
To be fair, the whiskey barrel does look a little piratey, especially when you don't look at it from a whiskey aspect. And this does look like it could be a bar on a pirate ship.
So my counterpoint to this was there's also a pool table in this room.
There wasn't, though.
Oh, that's true.
At that point in time, there was not.
Fair. Yeah, a pool table wouldn't go great on a pirate ship.
No,
it would. No, it wouldn't. Raging seas and stuff.
Honest, lot of talent.
Lot of talent. We complain about my pool table rolling a little bit. I feel like that would be an issue at sea.
You're already on top of that. Gonna get that fixed. All right, you ready for the last question?
Hit me.
It's a nail biter. If you could eat only steak or British biscuits for the rest of your life, which one would you choose and why?
Okay, so I only have to exclude one, or like that's it, like 3 meals a day for the rest of time?
I think, according to how that's worded, 3 meals a day for the rest of time. Which one would you choose? Nutrition, like, and what it does to you, put aside, because I see where your brain is going 100%, already.
I'm like, I like
nutritional value does not matter.
Okay, all right. So for people who don't know, British biscuits are kind of like cookies, but they're not cookies. They're their own distinctive class. A cookie is actually a sub folder under biscuits for us.
This is now the British Baking Show.
It is, and if you've never had custard creams and dunked them in tea, you've got some homework. But that's a good point. Do I get tea with my biscuits? Because dry English biscuits are like that's only half the meal.
You can have tea if it makes the question harder.
It does make the question harder. Do I get one type of steak and one type of biscuit, or do I have the whole?
Oh my goodness, Alex!
You know me. Why is this surprising at this point?
You can have whatever type of British biscuits and whatever type of tea, as long as they are those exact things.
Yep.
And you can
the whole cow
season, whatever part of a cow you want.
Okay, I mean, so I'm going to betray my roots here, and actually, if I get the whole cow, there's a lot of variety within a cow.
There is.
So I'm gonna go with steak.
We've Americanized him.
Yeah, it's happened. Also on the nutrition side of things, a life of steak is a much more fulfilling and also filling life than a life of biscuits.
Are you taking over the puns now?
A little bit.
Okay,
I'm doing my best to be punny.
Perfect. That is the end of Steph's Curious Questions.
That sound effect suits her personality.
Really I know, well. Right? We played that, and we decided she absolutely needed a segment on this show.
For sure.
Before we get out of here, plug what you have going on. What are you up to?
Yeah, so I am always taking on people for whiskey weight loss. If you are a disc golf player and you're also a whiskey drinker and you're also looking to lose weight, which I realize may not be a large percentage of your listeners, but if that's the case, or if you just want to follow my content and learn more about what I do, I'm active pretty exclusively on Facebook. Like, I have an Instagram account, but I don't use it very much because I spend all of my time on Facebook. But if you want to find me on Facebook, you can either search Alex Shaw, or you can go facebook.com/AlexShawFit, and I should pop up. There's a very dashing picture of me in a black t-shirt with a black background.
Wow.
Yeah, it says whiskey weight loss on it.
I will also post a link to this as well.
That would probably be much more helpful. Yeah.
Perfect.
For sure.
No, that is awesome. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm sorry that my words are not working today, which is a very bad time to have your words not working on a podcast. Luckily, there's video as well. I have finally figured out how to solve the conundrum of saying thank you for watching or thank you for listening. And now I just say thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate it. we are going to have many more off-season episodes, some with people who are not as in the disc golf space that I would really like to have them weigh in on disc golf topics, and others who are very in the disc golf space. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you guys next week. Oh, and thank you for joining me, Alex. That was very rude of me.
Yeah, it was quite rude. Thankfully, he's buying dinner later, so it's all good. He didn't know that.
Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you next week.